Have you ever wondered what truly makes a child smile? A brand new toy wrapped in glossy paper, or the warmth of an embrace in the middle of the night when they wake up scared. Adults often believe that if they give their children enough, a big house, the best school, the newest gadgets, that should be enough. But sometimes, all a child really needs is someone who listens when their little heart hurts. The story you're about to hear isn't about wealth or poverty. It's about something far deeper, something money can never buy. It begins in Palo Alto, where glass buildings shimmer under golden sunsets, and where success is measured in stock charts, not in laughter echoing from the kitchen. There lived a man named Andrew Collins, 46 years old, known in the business world as the golden mind of Silicon Valley. Still, he had everything people dream of: a powerful investment firm, a mansion overlooking the San Francisco Bay, sleek cars in a spotless garage, and a bank account that seemed limitless. But inside that mansion, there was something missing: the sound of his family's laughter. 8 months earlier, on a gray and rainy afternoon, Emily, the woman he loved more than anything, died in a car accident on the freeway. He still remembered that night vividly. The house filled with lights, yet darker than ever. His 2 children, Noah, 8, and Grace, 5, sat curled on the couch, unable to understand why their mother wasn't coming home. Since that day, the house that once smelled of freshly baked cookies and soft music had turned as cold as a tomb. Noah, the boy who used to run around asking endless questions, now shut himself in his room, glued to an iPad. Grace, the little girl who once sang while her mother baked, now sat silently holding her worn-out doll, refusing to eat. Andrew watched them and felt something inside him crack beyond repair. He tried, like any father would, but in the only way he knew, through money. Therapists, nannies, toys, every possible distraction. Yet nothing worked. By day, he drowned himself in work. Numbers, meetings, deals, anything to stay busy. By night, he returned to a lifeless house, where the lights were bright but the air was empty. He ate alone, the sound of silverware on porcelain echoing like metal scraping against loneliness. From the outside, Andrew looked like the luckiest man alive. But anyone standing by his gate on a quiet night would have heard it. The loudest kind of silence. The silence of a house that once had love, and now only grief. Andrew had no idea how lost he was until it was too late. He could move markets, but not the hearts of his children. He could create profits in millions, but not a single dinner filled with laughter. The next morning, Andrew decided to take a day off and stay home with his kids. He wanted to start with breakfast, the way Emily used to do. But when he walked into the kitchen, he didn't know where to begin. Everything felt foreign, from turning on the stove to finding the flour. In defeat, he ordered takeout, 3 pancakes in plastic boxes. They sat together around the table. No one spoke. Noah ate slowly. Grace pushed her plate away. Andrew forced a smile, cleared the table quietly, and felt the weight of failure settle over him again. He had tried, but even his best efforts only made the silence louder. What he didn't know was that, just a few days later, his front door would open for someone new, a woman who would change everything. The days that followed blurred into a dull, endless loop. Andrew woke up at 6, left before the kids opened their eyes, and returned long after they had fallen asleep. Inside the enormous mansion, his footsteps echoed like sounds in a hospital corridor. Sterile, cold, and lonely. He worked as if racing against his own emptiness. The busier he stayed, the less he had to feel. He tried everything to fix his children's lives. When the first therapists failed, he hired new ones. When Noah refused to talk, he bought the latest gaming console. When Grace wouldn't eat, he ordered meals from the most luxurious restaurants in San Francisco, hoping fine cuisine would bring back her appetite. But nothing worked. The kitchen remained quiet, the dining table untouched. Even the expensive food only reminded him of how much he missed Emily and her simple, warm dinners that filled the house with laughter. One night, Andrew sat watching Noah through the nanny cam. The boy's small face was lit blue by the screen, blank and distant. Grace, the nanny said, had cried again during dinner, begging for mommy's cake. Andrew exhaled, exhausted. All his wealth, all his resources, they only seemed to make the distance between him and his children deeper. He placed his hopes in the nannies. The first, Linda, was experienced and calm, recommended by a prestigious agency. She lasted 3 weeks. "The children don't want anyone near them," she said softly, "and this house feels unbearably sad." The second, Monica, young and full of enthusiasm, had a degree in education. She quit after 15 days. "I'm sorry, Mr. Collins," she said, eyes tired. "The atmosphere here is too heavy. I can't make them smile." The third nanny lasted 5 days. Andrew didn't blame them. He simply felt tired. Some nights he sat alone in the living room, turning on the TV just to hear human voices. The screen flickered with a cooking show, the host laughing, joking, while Andrew sat there, numb. The grand piano Emily used to play was now closed, coated with dust. Even the hum of the air conditioner sounded like a sigh. Once, as he walked past the playroom he had redesigned for the kids, Andrew stopped. The room was full of expensive toys, remote-controlled cars, giant Lego sets, a tiny projector for movie nights. But everything was covered in dust, untouched, as if childhood itself had paused there. He picked up a small red Ferrari model, the price tag still attached. He remembered Emily's voice one quiet afternoon. "You know, they don't need expensive gifts. They just want us to sit with them, to listen when they talk about their little cars." The memory hit him like a blade, sharp, clean, painful. He sat down, staring out the window as light rain shimmered under the street lamps. How had everything gone so wrong? He had once promised to protect his family at all costs. Now, all he had left was a beautiful house and 2 children who felt like strangers. Andrew knew he had to change something, but he didn't know how. He couldn't turn back time. He couldn't bring Emily home. He couldn't force his children to smile through willpower alone. In his darkest moments, he started to believe that happiness had permanently left this house. And then, just as he was ready to give up, on an ordinary Monday morning, a woman named Maria Gonzalez walked through the front door. No one noticed her. No one imagined it. But her arrival would change everything. That morning, a thin sunlight filtered through the tall glass windows, glinting on the dining table still sprinkled with crumbs from the night before. Andrew sat at the head of the table, absently stirring a cup of coffee gone cold. The sound of the doorbell broke the heavy silence. He glanced at his watch, exactly 8 o'clock. "Must be the cleaning service," he thought, too weary to care. When the door opened, Maria Gonzalez stepped inside. She was 42, petite, with dark hair neatly tied in a low bun. Her navy uniform was clean but faded, the fabric worn at the cuffs. On her feet were old black shoes, and in her hands, a canvas bag of cleaning supplies and a small lunch tin. She lowered her gaze politely and smiled, a small, sincere smile. Andrew barely looked up. "You can start in the kitchen. Clean the living room, change the sheets. Don't touch the kids' toys. They don't like strangers." His voice was flat, efficient, emotionless, like a man giving orders out of habit. Maria nodded softly. "Of course, Mr. Collins." She set down her bag and began to work in silence. The house was vast, too perfect, too still. As she walked across the marble hallway, light bounced off the walls like reflections on ice. Maria had worked in many wealthy homes, but something about this one felt different. A stillness that wasn't peace, but sorrow polished to perfection. In the living room, her eyes fell upon a grand piano, closed and dusted over. On top sat a photo. A blonde woman smiling brightly, holding two children beside the man Maria instantly recognized as her employer. The warmth in that photograph contrasted painfully with the cold air of the room. She understood at once. This was a house that had known love, and then lost it. Maria knew little about Andrew Collins beyond his name and address. But in his eyes that morning, she had seen a familiar exhaustion, the kind of weariness carried by those who have lost everything, yet must keep standing for someone else. In the kitchen, she opened the refrigerator. Inside were rows of neatly stacked takeout boxes, sushi, pasta, French desserts, elegant but lifeless. On a high shelf, she found a small leather-bound notebook labeled Recipes Emily. She opened it carefully. The pages were yellowed, filled with graceful handwriting. Chocolate cake for Noah's birthday. Apple pie for Grace. Inside the cover, a photograph was taped. The same woman from the living room, baking with two giggling children, their hair dusted with flour, faces glowing with joy. Maria closed the book slowly, her throat tightening. She knew that sometimes the greatest loss isn't losing the person you love. It's losing the feeling of being loved inside your own home. She kept cleaning quietly, unaware that this house was about to change her life forever. Because Maria, too, carried a story of her own. Once, she had been a kindergarten teacher, trained in child psychology at a small college in Mexico City. She used to teach in a neighborhood school where the children came barefoot, their laughter echoing in dusty hallways. But when her youngest, Marco, was only 2, her husband left, taking with him their savings and leaving behind debt. Maria had no choice but to leave her teaching job and work wherever she could. For 15 years, she juggled 3 jobs, cleaning homes in the mornings, helping in a restaurant kitchen in the afternoons, and scrubbing office floors at night. Yet even in exhaustion, she made time for her children, helping with homework, reading bedtime stories, cooking together on weekends. Now, Alex, her eldest, was 22 and a civil engineer. Sophia, 19, was studying nursing, and Marco, 15, a bright, gentle boy who loved math and cooking. Maria never imagined that her life could change again. But that morning, when she crossed the threshold of the Collins house, something shifted. She didn't know it yet, but the cracks in that home, and in its owner's heart, were about to lead her toward a chapter she had never dreamed of. The first few days in the Collins household passed in silence, broken only by the faint hum of the vacuum cleaner and the ticking of the wall clock. Maria didn't talk much. She simply watched, not out of curiosity, but with the quiet intuition of someone who had long learned to read sorrow without words. She saw Noah barely ever leave his room. He sat on the bed, eyes fixed on his iPad, fingers moving, face empty. The room was large, decorated with superhero posters, scattered with expensive toys, model cars, airplanes, massive Lego sets, all unopened, all covered in a thin layer of dust. Maria realized this wasn't a child's room anymore. It was a museum of a happiness that had stopped existing. Grace, 5 years old, spent most of her time by the window in the living room, holding a frayed old doll, staring out into the backyard, where Emily had once planted lavender. She rarely spoke, only whispering softly to herself, as if conversing with someone unseen. Whenever anyone approached, she shrank back, clutching her doll like a shield. Maria didn't intrude. She understood that some wounds, if touched too soon, only deepen. The only person who spoke much was Lindsay, the young nanny Andrew had recently hired. Always glued to her phone, she tried to sound cheerful but came off forced. "Grace, want to watch a movie? Noah, want to play a game with me?" She'd ask brightly, her voice too loud for such a quiet house. The children never replied. When Lindsay laughed, the sound echoed unnaturally in the empty air, sharp enough to make Maria wince. The longer Maria stayed, the more she sensed the strange emptiness that filled the place. Everything was spotless, expensive, in perfect order, yet it lacked something vital: life. It felt like a display home, not a home where people actually lived. While cleaning, she noticed small details that told the story of this family. Above the fireplace hung a large framed photo, the four of them on Christmas Day, wrapped in golden lights, smiling. Emily's arms around Andrew and the kids, laughter frozen in time. But now a thin film of dust dimmed those smiles, as if even happiness had grown tired. In the kitchen, Maria once again saw the small brown leather recipe book, Emily's. She flipped through it gently, stopping at a page titled "Chocolate Cake for Grace's 5th Birthday." Next to the handwriting was a faint smudge of flour, as though a tiny hand had touched it years ago. Maria smiled softly, imagining the mother and her children laughing together, baking with messy hands and warm hearts. Now, the same kitchen still carried the faint scent of vanilla, but none of the joy. That afternoon, golden light streamed through the windows, stretching across the polished floors. Maria stood quietly, looking around the vast living room. She thought, some stains can be wiped away, but some wounds need love to heal. She didn't know why her heart felt so heavy for this family she barely knew. Maybe because she, too, had once been a mother standing alone, watching her own child's eyes fill with confusion as he asked, "Where's Dad, Mom?" Maria understood. The sadness in this house couldn't be scrubbed away with soap or silenced with wealth. What it needed was presence, patience, and genuine kindness. Someone willing to listen without judgment and love without reason. That evening, as she left the house, Maria glanced back through the glass doors. Inside, the dim yellow light framed two small silhouettes, one sitting, one standing by the window, like two little souls drifting in the quiet. She whispered to herself, "Tomorrow, I'll make this house warm again, even if it's just a little." That afternoon, a gentle rain fell, tracing blurred lines down the kitchen window like trails of memory. Maria was wiping the counter when she heard a faint sob coming from the corner. She turned. Grace was sitting on the floor, clutching her torn doll, tears streaming down her small face. "I want Mommy's cake," she cried softly, voice trembling. "Mommy, I want Mommy's smell of cake." The words were quiet, but they cut deep. Maria froze for a moment, her hand tightening around the cloth. Nearby, Lindsay was trying to coax the child. "Grace, don't cry, sweetie. Look, I got you some cake." She opened a box of expensive mousse cake, setting it on the table. "Eat this. You'll feel better." Grace pushed the box away, sobbing harder. "It's not Mommy's cake. It doesn't smell like Mommy. Lindsay sighed, annoyed, and turned back to her phone. Maria watched in silence, her chest tightening with compassion. She walked over, knelt down beside Grace, her movements slow, deliberate. "Sweetheart," she said gently, her voice low and warm. "Can you tell me, how did your mommy make her cake?" Grace looked up, startled. No one had ever asked her that. For a moment, she said nothing. Then, through hiccuped breaths, she whispered, "She let me break the eggs, even when I made a mess." She still laughed. "Then we licked the spoon, and she made smiley faces on the cake with white cream and rainbow sprinkles." Her small voice wavered, but as she spoke, something shifted. Her lips trembled, then curved into a tiny, fragile smile. Maria listened without interrupting, nodding softly, letting the memory breathe again. Just then, Noah appeared at the doorway. He saw his sister talking, really talking, for the first time in months. Slowly, he walked over, his voice quiet but sure. "Mom used to let me make brigadeiros," he said, "but I always ate more than I rolled." Grace turned toward him and laughed, a real laugh, light and pure, echoing through the kitchen like the first bird song after a long, cold winter. Noah smiled too, shyly, as Maria felt her chest tighten with emotion. The three of them sat there on the kitchen floor beside the untouched mousse cake. Rain tapped softly against the window, but inside, something had changed. The air felt warmer, filled with the sweet scent of remembered love. Maria knew she could never replace the mother they had lost, but maybe, just maybe, she could help make that memory hurt a little less by turning it into love. When Grace lifted her head and met her eyes, trust shimmered there, fragile but real. Maria smiled. She knew the first step toward healing had begun. The next morning, sunlight streamed softly through the kitchen windows, gentler than usual. Maria arrived carrying a large canvas bag. Inside were eggs, flour, sugar, and chocolate. She set it on the table, then looked at the two children sitting quietly nearby. "Would you like to bake a cake with me?" she asked softly, her tone as warm as sunlight. Grace lifted her eyes, hesitant but curious. "Bake a cake?" "Yes," Maria smiled. "A chocolate cake. Not like your mom's, but one that's ours." Noah stepped closer, hands in his pockets. "We're allowed in the kitchen?" Before Maria could answer, Lindsay appeared, frowning. "No way. Kids shouldn't be in the kitchen. It's dangerous." Maria turned toward her, calm and steady. "I'm an adult," she said gently, "and I know how to teach children to cook safely." Lindsay rolled her eyes and left, phone in hand. Maria exhaled quietly, then looked back at the children. "All right," she said. "Let's begin." The kitchen, once silent and cold, slowly came alive. Maria showed Grace how to crack the eggs. "Easy now. Don't worry if it gets messy." The little girl held the egg carefully, tapping it against the bowl. The shell broke, yolk slipping out, a bit splashing onto her hand. Grace giggled. Noah sifted flour into the bowl. "Looks like snow," he said, and Grace laughed again. Maria smiled, feeling the warmth inside her chest, like the oven preheating behind them. Flour dusted the counter. Melted chocolate gleamed. The wooden spoon clattered rhythmically against the mixing bowl. Their laughter mixed with the patter of rain outside, creating a symphony of simple joy. When the cake went into the oven, the smell of chocolate began to spread. Rich, comforting, familiar. It filled every corner of the house, bringing back something that had been gone for far too long. The children stood before the oven, eyes wide, watching the cake slowly rise. When the timer rang, Maria opened the oven door. A wave of warm sweetness wrapped around them. She set the cake on the table. Grace stared at it, then tears welled up again. But this time, they weren't from sadness. "It doesn't smell like Mommy's," she whispered, voice trembling. "But it's good, because I made it." Maria gently brushed a strand of hair from the girl's face. "That's right, sweetheart. The smell of love," she said softly, "is always the sweetest." Noah looked at them both, his eyes bright for the first time in months. He broke off a piece of cake, handed it to his sister, and said quietly, "I think Mom would love this smell." Outside, sunlight broke through after the rain, streaming through the window and glinting off the steam from the cake. For the first time in 8 long months, the kitchen was filled with laughter, sweetness, and warmth. The warmth of a family reborn. Maria knew the first miracle had just happened. As laughter filled the kitchen, Lindsay appeared at the doorway, her face stiff with disbelief. Flour dusted the floor, chocolate smeared the children's hands, and the air was thick with the scent of freshly baked cake, as if the house itself had finally woken up. But Lindsay saw no miracle, only a mess. "What do you think you're doing?" she snapped, glaring at Maria. "You have no right to let them in the kitchen. I'm responsible for these kids, not you." Maria looked up, still calm. "I just thought a little flour and laughter never hurt anyone." "Never hurt anyone?" Lindsay scoffed. "You're interfering with my work. Mr. Collins didn't hire you to play games with the children." Maria didn't argue. She simply wiped her hands and said quietly, "If I've overstepped, I apologize. But maybe this is exactly what they needed." Lindsay stormed off, her heels clicking furiously on the marble floor. Later that evening, Andrew came home after another exhausting day of meetings. The moment he opened the door, he froze. The house, once silent and cold, was now filled with the warm scent of chocolate. From the kitchen came the sound of laughter, genuine, bright, alive. He walked slowly toward the doorway. There on the counter, Noah and Grace sat side by side, their hands messy with flour, their faces glowing with joy. Maria stood beside them, saying something that made them laugh even harder. It was the kind of scene he hadn't witnessed since Emily was alive. "Daddy, look!" Grace exclaimed, holding up a slice of cake. "We made it with Miss Maria." Andrew looked at her, then at Maria. In the golden kitchen light, Maria seemed serene, her hands dusted with flour, her face kind and warm. He said nothing, afraid that even a word might break the fragile magic of the moment. Then Lindsay stepped forward, her tone sharp. "Mr. Collins, we need to talk." She went completely over the line. "Let the children cook, made a mess everywhere. I can't work like this." Andrew didn't reply. His eyes were fixed on his children, laughing, alive, full of energy. He barely heard the rest. Because right then, he realized something. What all his money, experts, and rules had failed to achieve, a simple woman had done, with nothing but kindness. When Lindsay finally stopped talking, Andrew said quietly, "Thank you, Lindsay. You won't be needed anymore." Lindsay's mouth fell open. Maria lowered her gaze, saying nothing. That night, the kitchen still smelled of chocolate. Andrew sat alone at the table, a small slice of cake before him. He took a bite. It was sweet, slightly bitter, simple. But within that taste, he heard his children's laughter and saw Emily's smile flicker in his mind. He closed his eyes. For the first time in months, He felt home. When he opened them again, he glanced toward the staircase where Maria had just disappeared. Who is this woman? The question lingered in his chest, soft but unshakable. That night, after letting Lindsay go, the house fell into a calm, quiet stillness. Only the faint scent of chocolate lingered in the air, like a gentle reminder of something lost long ago. Andrew sat in the kitchen for a long time, staring at the 2 half-finished cups of milk his children had left behind. He couldn't remember the last time he had seen them laugh. Maybe this woman, Maria, had done what he never could. The next morning, sunlight poured softly through the kitchen windows. Andrew was up early, already waiting with 2 cups of tea. When Maria entered, she looked surprised but composed, still wearing her navy uniform, her hair neatly tied. "You wanted to see me, sir?" Andrew nodded. "Yes, I think we should talk." He hesitated, then added quietly, "Yesterday I saw my children laughing. Thank you for that." Rosa Maria smiled, lowering her gaze. "You don't have to thank me, Mr. Collins. I only—" He interrupted gently, his voice steady but sincere. "No, I mean it. I need to understand. I've hired therapists, teachers, nannies, the best money could buy. None of them made my kids smile. And you did, in 2 days." Maria was silent for a moment. She placed her rough hands in her lap, then spoke softly. "I didn't do anything special, Mr. Collins. I just listened. I didn't try to fix them. I let them be sad to remember. Children don't need to forget the people they love. They just need permission to love again." Andrew looked at her for a long moment. In the slanted morning light, her face looked calm, illuminated from within. In her eyes, he saw not pity but strength, the quiet resilience of someone who had carried pain and still chosen kindness. He asked softly, "Maria, where did you learn all this?" She smiled, a little shy. "I used to be a kindergarten teacher in Mexico City. I have a degree in child psychology, but when my husband left, I had 3 kids and a pile of debt. I had to work wherever I could. Cleaning houses wasn't my dream, but it fed my family." Her voice didn't tremble. "For years, I worked 3 jobs. But my children taught me something. Love doesn't need to be grand. Sometimes it's just a warm meal, a bedtime story, a hug after a hard day. That's what keeps a family together." Andrew listened quietly. Her words filled the spaces inside him he didn't know were empty. He felt a sharp sting of shame for judging her by her uniform, for thinking he could buy warmth with money. He spoke at last, voice low but full of emotion. "Maria, you didn't just clean my house. You cleaned the dust off my children's hearts." Maria looked down, her eyes shimmering. "I only did what any mother would do. Those children, they need love, not pity." A tender silence followed. The morning light glowed against their cups of tea, filling the room with a soft warmth. Andrew took a breath. "If you're willing, I'd like you to stay, not just to clean, but to help me take care of them. Teach them. Be here, as you already are." Maria hesitated. "You don't have to do this for me, sir." He shook his head gently. "I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for them, for this home." Maria smiled, her eyes soft. "Then I'll stay. Not for the salary, but because those children still need someone who believes they can laugh again." Andrew held her gaze, then nodded. In that quiet moment, both understood. A new chapter in the Collins family had just begun. Time passed, and the Collins house had become a true home. Andrew learned to cook, Grace baked on her own, and Noah could finally play the melody his mother used to love. Life had found its rhythm again, not through perfection, but through love. That Sunday afternoon, Andrew came home earlier than usual. The Palo Alto sky was crystal clear, the sunlight spilling gently over the garden. As he turned off the car and walked toward the house, laughter reached him from the kitchen, bright, free, full of life. From the doorway, he saw Maria sitting between Noah and Grace, arms around them as they shared a slice of carrot cake with chocolate frosting. Their faces were smudged with flour, but their smiles were pure joy. "A little more cream, Grace," Maria teased. "Mommy Rosa makes it best," Grace squealed. Noah added, "Mommy Rosa should open her own bakery." Andrew froze at the threshold. "Mommy Rosa." The words pierced his heart like a gentle song. He looked at Maria, at the way she wiped frosting from Grace's cheek, her eyes warm with a love that couldn't be faked. And he knew then, a miracle had quietly unfolded. No one could ever replace Emily. But Maria had done something even greater. She had brought love back into this house. That afternoon, when the children went down for a nap, Andrew invited Maria to stay for dinner. She hesitated but agreed. That evening, the table was simple but elegant. Candlelight flickered softly against their faces. Maria sat beside the children, and Andrew rose with a glass of wine in his hand. "Maria," he began, his voice calm but full of emotion. "I've thought a lot about what you've done for this family. You didn't just take care of my children. You gave them back the most precious thing, faith and love." Maria opened her mouth to speak, but he gently set an envelope and a small folder in front of her. "This is my gift, not payment, but gratitude." Inside were the papers for a small apartment in downtown Palo Alto, a savings fund for her 3 children, and an official offer: Director of Family Education Programs for Andrew's charitable foundation. Maria stared at the documents, stunned. Her hand went to her mouth as tears filled her eyes. "No, I can't accept this. I don't deserve it, sir." Andrew shook his head, his voice low and trembling. "Maria, you've given me more than anyone ever could. You brought laughter back to my children, warmth back to my home. You gave us life again. There's no price for that." Maria couldn't hold back anymore. She cried openly, her shoulders shaking. The children ran to her, wrapping their small arms around her waist. "Mommy Rosa, now you have your own house, but you'll still come here on weekends, right?" She nodded through her tears, hugging them tight. "I promise, no matter where I live, I'll always be your Mommy Rosa." Andrew looked at the 3 of them, the souls destiny had brought into his life, and he realized this was more than gratitude. It was love, the kind that arrives quietly but fills every corner of an empty heart. Outside, the candlelight flickered gently, blending with the children's laughter and casting soft reflections on the window, as if to whisper a simple truth. Sometimes, miracles don't need angels. They only need an ordinary heart filled with extraordinary love. A few months later, a quiet neighborhood in Palo Alto welcomed new residents. Maria and her 3 children, Alex, Sophia, and Marco, moved into the apartment Andrew had given her. It was only a short drive away, close enough for Grace and Noah to run over every afternoon, knocking on the door with excitement. "Mommy Rosa, what are we cooking today?" Alex, the eldest, helped Andrew redesign the backyard into a small vegetable garden. Sophia joined Maria and Grace in the kitchen, laughing as they tried new cake recipes. Marco, energetic and curious, became Noah's closest friend, fixing bikes together, playing piano, and sharing secrets only boys could understand. The 2 families blended so naturally that no one could tell where one ended and the other began. On weekend nights, the long table in the backyard glowed with golden lights. Andrew grilled meat, Maria baked desserts, and the children's laughter echoed like music. When the wine glasses emptied and the music softened, it was clear to anyone watching, this was family, not by blood or contract, but by choice and by love. Andrew was no longer the cold, unreachable CEO he once was. He spent less time in boardrooms and more time in the kitchen. He could chop vegetables, stir soup, and sometimes burn a batch of cookies, much to the kids' amusement. But behind his laughter was a peace he had never known before. The peace of a man who had finally found the meaning of life. Together, he and Maria opened a small school, Home and Heart. It wasn't just a place to learn math or reading. It was a place where children learned kindness, family values, and the art of keeping their hearts warm in a hurried world. Above the school gate, a simple phrase written by Andrew read, "Success isn't measured by the numbers in your account, but by the number of people you truly love." One evening near the year's end, the sunset painted the garden gold. Andrew watched as their families cleared the table, laughter floating in the air like music. Maria looked up, her eyes meeting his, and in that glance, they both knew. They had walked through loss, but what they found beyond it was even greater. A home, a heart, and a love built on grace. And if anyone ever asked Andrew whether he believed in miracles, he would smile and say, "Sometimes, angels come in the simplest forms, carrying the scent of cake and the light of love."